Was this intentional? Did he take the car, the truck, and ram right into him? Or was this some type of accident where he allegedly was turning around and then the guy got hit? Now, in either one of those scenarios, potentially the damage that is done to the victim will be different. So ultimately, the jury's going to look at that, but I think that's going to play a key role in this case.
Really good point. The forensics make a difference in terms of the jury deciding that, I think. Now, Marie, you know, I had to come back to you and ask about, we never blame victims, and we are very good about not blaming victims, but there's a third person who is also a victim in this case. It's the estranged wife at the time, now divorced from the defendant, who was the girlfriend of the victim. Did she have any role in this scenario?
Sadly, I think she does, and I will call her Messy Meredith, because at the end of the day, she knew that her husband was crazy jealous. He had been stalking her the entire night. So she's sitting there with her boyfriend, and he's calling and calling. So she shows the boyfriend, who's also tipsy, 0.11, okay? The call, and she essentially sets up a play date at 1:30 in the morning between two drunk men, both of whom she's sleeping with, the other one who's devastated, and they're not even fully divorced yet. There's a divorce in process, and then she joins them together, 1:30 in the morning, two men who want her, who've had her, one who's crushed, and then they meet. What did she think was going to happen? I'm not blaming her because people have free will, but maybe, in hindsight, don't link them, don't plan a play date for a discussion at 1:30 in the morning between one hurt and one very angry man.
And you know what victims always say after the fact is, I may have been scared, I may have been worried, but I never thought he or she, the defendant, would do that. I never thought he'd actually kill somebody by running over him with a truck.
You know, I want to take that back because she knew, because when she came and the nanny saw the body of the victim, she ran and she hid because she thought he was still around. Why are you hiding, and why did you automatically think it was him that did it? Because you know your man, you know he was mad, you should have never set that meeting up, and if they set it up themselves, you should have discouraged it.
Agree or disagree quickly before we go back to court, Kelly?
With all due respect, I disagree with your position. I think we have to look at ultimately how he was killed and who killed him, and that is the culprit in this matter.
All right, we're going to see what happens. Let's get back into court now. The medical examiner is still on the stand, but the defense is now going to cross-examine him. Let's go back in.
That Mr. McClendon suffered was a result of the automobile situation about being hit by a car, correct? I mean, no, you haven't seen anything to dispute that.
I have not.
And we haven't even raised that issue, have we?
Not to me.
As far as you know. But there were multiple injuries of blunt force trauma, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and you've seen, would you say, at least 50 pedestrian, or was it more than that?
It's probably more than that. It's probably in the neighborhood of 100, give or take, that I've personally done.
Okay. And injuries such as this are consistent with pedestrians who get struck by vehicles?
Correct.
Correct?
Yes.
It's most unfortunate, but that's what happens when somebody gets hit by a car.
Yes.
These multiple fractures and abrasions and the road rash and all the things that you described, correct?
Yes, all those things can occur.
Okay. I believe the EMS, when they got there, there was no pattern, he appeared to be dead at that point when they got there. And are you aware of that? Have you may have been aware of that?
Yes, that's the best of my understanding. I did review that EMS report, although it's been a while.
Okay, so I mean, basically, it appears that he may have died instantly, correct?
Rapidly, I think would be a more accurate term. Yes.
Okay, and he would have been hit and not had consciousness at that point. Is that correct?
Likely, correct. Okay. Yeah.
So let me just ask you a couple of other questions, because I'd like to ask you some questions about the toxicology report. 0.118 is close to 0.12. Is that, I mean, they're pretty much from my second or third grade education.
Sure, if we round up.
So let me ask you this. You're aware of the fact that in South Carolina, if you're driving a vehicle with a 0.08, there's a presumption you're under the influence, correct?
That's my understanding of the legal definitions, although I don't
No, I'm not asking you to opine about that, but that's what your understanding is.
Yes.
So this would have been over a .08, correct?
Correct.
And you understood that he was driving to where the accident happened?
It is my understanding that is how he arrived at that location originally.
Somebody with a .118, as the alcohol percentages increase in the body, and there's a change in behavior, correct? I mean, as far as pathology is concerned, you're aware of the fact that there's an increase in change in behavior.
In some people, yes. Every individual is different, so some people with a very small amount of alcohol will display changes or differences, whereas someone else with a much higher amount may not display those changes or differences.
Right, and there's really no way to know, but some of the factors that we do know that someone at a .118, there could be a change in behavior, correct?
In some individuals, yes.
Correct. So we're at that level. An individual with a .118, one of the signs of someone who, again, we don't know a particular individual, but one of them is losing judgment, correct? That's one of the things in pathology that we know.
Again, in general, just to be clear, my interpretation of toxicology, in other words, what I do for a living, part of my specialty, really focuses on death and how and when it affects the physiologic cause of death. And that depends on the individual case, but my interpretation is generally that the intoxication level or how an individual responds is widely variable. Depends on the individual case.
All right, and I'm not asking you to opine about it, but I'm just talking about general characteristics. Having looked at some pathology books, there are charts dealing with alcohol levels in the pathology books.
Yes, there are some statistical
Right.
tables and charts that say, you know, at or around this level, this can generally happen. But again, from an individual point of view, it varies.
Okay. So, but you would agree that as alcohol content increases in someone, some people have impaired judgment, correct?
Some people, sure.
Some people get aggressive, correct?
That may happen.
Some people really have resistance to pain as the alcohol level increases.
Again, it's highly variable.
Yeah,
sure.
and I'm not trying to pin you down. I'm just asking you I mean, you're an expert, a pathologist, and I haven't disputed that. But as the alcohol level increases, these factors become an issue, can become an issue.
Can.
Okay. And aggressiveness, correct, is another factor that can be, you can show up, somebody can be aggressive as the alcohol level increases.
Some
correct?
people who are actually intoxicated will be more aggressive, others less. It really depends on the individual.
Right, okay. Fair enough. And I just wanted, from a pathology standpoint, and because having reviewed some pathology books, those charts are there, and I just wanted to see if you agree that as the alcohol level increases, some of these characteristics can be there.
Can,
correct?
sure.
Okay.
Sure.
And let me ask you, Adderall. Apparently he had a prescription for Adderall. And Adderall sort of, tell me what the effects of Adderall are, is from your standpoint in pathology.
Sure. Again, I don't treat people with ADD, so how that affects people in a prescription sense is different from what I'm looking at when I look at a case from a potential cause of death point of view. So those things are a little bit different. So if at low levels or at therapeutic levels, I probably would not be the best person to indicate what therapeutic levels might or might not do to an individual.
Okay. I mean, as a doctor, you would agree that someone who is taking Adderall, which is used for ADHD, should not be drinking, correct?
I can't speak to that. Okay.
Would you recommend someone drink if they're on Adderall?
I sustain.
Okay. All right. Do you aware of, in pathology, is there a synergistic effect between alcohol and something like Adderall?
I'm not aware of a classic synergistic effect as there can be with some other drugs and medications that are very, very similar types of medications, so I can't speak to that specifically.
And I don't know if this was the objection that you sustained, but do you know what the effect of What happens when someone's taking Adderall? Do you know?
Again, I can't speak to that.
Okay, that's fine. I didn't know if that was the objection or not.
Sustained.
Okay. That's all I have.
Okay. All right.
Very briefly.
Yes, sir.
Alcohol affects people different ways.
Most definitely.
Some happy,
Yes.
some sad, some angry.
I can't testify.
Yeah. All right. Rephrase, Mr. Matters, if you would.
Does alcohol affect people differently?
Yes.
Okay. In what way?
Well, again, different people respond in different ways. Some people go into party mode. Some people get depressed. Some people, it really depends on the individual. That's, again, based on cases that I've seen leading up to a death. That's the history that I get with it, as well as personal life experience. But yes, everyone acts and reacts differently, and sometimes it's consistent from episode to episode of drinking. Sometimes it varies. It just depends.
All right. Dr. Shaw, you can step down.
Thank you.
You are free to leave the courthouse. You're more than welcome to remain with us.
Speculating on things, giving his opinion where maybe he wouldn't have had there been an objection, but there wasn't, so that's the conclusion of his testimony. Stay with us. Coming up next, the state calls their final witness an investigator who responded to the crime scene on the night of that fatal crash. You don't want to miss this. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Ashley Wilcott. Thank you so much for being with us. We will get you back to court in just a moment. But first, an update out of Ohio for our other live trial, the medical assistant murder trial. Defendant Quentin Nixon, who is representing himself, is accused of gunning down 34-year-old Tony Westover at a house party. But Nixon says he fired in self-defense after a fight broke out. Here's the update. The state has now arrested their case in chief. That happened earlier today, but not before the court heard a recorded interview with Nixon where he told police he was in fear for his life.
It seems like everybody was trying to get that gun out of your hand, and you panicked.
Who's everybody?
You said Brian, Adam, and the girl was...
They didn't start trying to do that until after I shot.
Okay. So they didn't try to get the gun from you until after you shot.
It was weird.
No, it makes sense. Because if someone had a gun and then they shot, that would normally be when someone would try to wrestle a gun away from someone.
He had Adam right here with his gun training.
Yeah.
Then he moved over there and grabbed some printer and started printing out. I was wrong. I was in fear for my life.
I was in fear for my life. You just heard him say it. Court ended early for the day there due to scheduling issues and will reconvene next week for the start of the defense's case in chief, where we do expect the defendant, Quentin Nixon, to testify. Now let's go back to South Carolina versus William Bud Ackerman. Prosecutors say that Ackerman drove his pickup truck and his wife's new boyfriend, killing him in May of last year. The defense claims it was an accident fueled by the victim's desire to fight the defendant. On the stand right now is the state's final witness. This is Captain Mike Murdoch. Testimony just beginning, direct examination by the state.
For all of the data,
Okay.
so I don't have firsthand knowledge of all of that.
That's fine. Can we prepared a map, just a map of the area. This will aid your testimony. And I think this is states 58 without
I don't
objection.
have any objection to it.
Sir?
I have no objection.
Okay. All right, 58 into evidence for the state.
Somebody's going to tell us the best place to put this, Judge. I think we're...
We have a podium.
We do have a little stand of some sort. Where would it be?
I apologize.
That's all right.
Is that a Google overhead?
Yes. Just going to get it into the room.
You want to come over here where you can see?
There you go. You'll need to step down for this, I believe.
Yes, sir.
Captain, you have to keep your voice up, as I know you will. You mind coming down, Captain? Where the sticker? He's on worse. Now, Captain, you recognize this as an aerial photo of some of the locations we've talked about?
Yes, sir.
Okay, can you, and I've got these stickers we're trying to get read. Can you point out Key West on here?
Key West Club is going to be right around in here.
And you then testified that he then went to Tally Ho?
Yes, sir.
Can you tell us where Tally Ho is?
Just a couple of them. Tally Ho will be in this area.
And then where did the defendant go after that?
Then he went to, based on the investigation of what I have learned, it went to Lakeshore Drive, which is the residence of Davis McClendon, lived on Lakeshore Drive.
Okay, and that's been testified previously. Davis McClendon lived on Lakeshore Drive?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Where did the defendant go after that?
He went from there, stick red, can't give me a red. Then he went, Lakeshore Drive is here, you basically cross over 72, 221 to break on the lake.
Okay. Now, you're familiar with Break on the Lake?
Yes, sir.
And I think we had a Patrick Hinderling who put the video in of Break on the Lake.
I wasn't present for the testimony, but I believe there was one, yes, sir.
Okay, and you are aware of the video from Break on the Lake, correct?
Yes, sir, I'm aware there is a video from there.
We need to squeeze in another break. Just a reminder, this is the last state's witness, so the jury will have all the evidence from the state, but then that defense will have an opportunity to present any evidence if they choose to. Stay tuned, we'll be right back.
When they couldn't sufficiently scare him, they killed him.
A young jogger chased and gunned down in South Georgia.
Ahmaud Arbery was hunted down.
Once that video got released to the public, everything changed.
They made their decision to attack Ahmaud Arbery in their driveways.
Should we have been chasing him? I don't know.
Victim to Verdict with Ted Rollins. All news Sunday night, 8, 7 Central.
Only on Court TV.
Let's head back to South Carolina now, where the case against Bud Ackerman is winding down. We are getting close to hearing whether jurors believe he intentionally drove his truck into his estranged wife's new boyfriend, or if they side with the defense, who says it was an accident. Right now, the jury is hearing from Captain Mike Murdoch with the Greenville Police Department. He's laying out some of the key locations noted in his investigation.
Is this the parking lot at the outside of Break on the Lake?
Yes, sir, it appears to be.
Would you dispute at the top it says 0037?
No, sir, I wouldn't dispute it.
Okay. Whose truck is that?
Bud Ackerman's.
What directions does the car appear to turn?
Appeared to turn, I have to play it back. Appeared to turn left going towards the bridge.
And based on your investigation, when it turned left to go to the bridge, where did it go?
Across the bridge to the Port Grill, what used to be the dock years ago in the Lawrence County.
Can you put a sticker there?
Yes, sir.
Used to be. What did it used to be?
Used to be the dock years ago. I don't know when it changed hands or why, but.
And based on your investigation of the infotainment center in the F-250 truck, where did he go next?
But on my information provided to me, it left there and came back over to right here to where his residence is on Old Abbeville Highway.
Okay. And did he pass his residence or did he go in his residence?
If I'm not mistaken on the information provided to me, this Rivers Run's come out, he passed it and then backed up.
Okay. And where did he go after that?
Then he eventually winds up down here at Abbott and Sawgrass.
Did he go on Abbott and Sawgrass once or twice?
I think.
That's not leading. I'm asking what.
No, not the leading is the source of the information.
I'm sorry, Judge. I didn't mean to respond.
I mean, my problem is that is he being accurate about it? That's my problem.
I think the travel of the defendant is already into evidence through the video of yesterday, whatever the amount of time it was. So that's already into evidence. So I don't see a problem with Mr. Meadows asking Captain Murdoch these questions.
And I understand it's in evidence, but it's just the interpretation. That's what I'm concerned about, because I'm not sure that Captain Murdoch really knows this information. That's my problem.
Well, if he's familiar with the evidence that has been put in the record, then I'm going to allow him to.
Yes, sir.
Okay. May proceed.
It goes down in there. To be specific, I don't know how many times and what but I know that it eventually ends at Abbott and Sawgrass.
Okay. And his parents' house is where?
His parents' house is right here.
Okay. And Abbott and Sawgrass is where?
It's right here, kind of under this right here.
You want to put a sticker there?
We are going to go through the ridge.
And if approximately, if you know, it was in evidence, do you know how many miles this is?
No, sir.
Okay. Then you can have a seat back. Thank you. Now, Captain, who decided to call in MATE, the highway patrol folks?
I did. I made that decision.
Okay. And why?
Still with us, attorneys Kelly Hyman, Marie Pereira. I'm smiling because we were all leaning in as we're watching everything on this, ladies, and all the video. He drove through that parking lot. Let me start with you, Kelly, beforehand. Does that mean premeditation to you?
Intent, intent, intent. So what was his intent? So the fact that he allegedly drove around the place before the meeting, why did he do that? What was on his mind? Was he planning something? Did he want to see what the scene was like? It shows a very strong case for the state.
And I think there's been evidence, Marie, for me to think, well, he definitely, in this particular case with this woman, was doing some things that I would consider stalking, probably harassing. Does that rise to the level of murder in your mind so far with the evidence the state's presented?
It doesn't rise to the level of murder, but it creates a motive. A motive, you know, we don't have to prove as prosecutors, but the jurors want to know what had happened.
Yep.
And I'm going to say it again, even though Kelly gets upset. It was Messy Meredith.
That's behind the scenes.
That was the catalyst behind this entire thing.
Yeah.
And was him going to, you know, drive around that parking lot show intent? I agree with Kelly on that point. But as far as him being there in the first place, who arranged it? Messy Meredith.
Maybe Meredith had tried and tried and tried, right? And was fed up and done and didn't know what else to do and thought, all right, fine, let's try it. Go talk to him. See if you can reason with him because he's harassing me. He's stalking me. He's driving me crazy. I'm fearful of him. I just need him to go away. Go try it. I don't think that means, Kelly, necessarily she thought, oh, it's going to result in death.
People need to be accountable for their actions. And now the defendant is innocent until proven guilty. But if in fact he is guilty, then there is accountability.
All right, we're out of time. Thank you to Kelly Hyman for joining us. Marie sticking around. Up next, Michael Ayala. We're going to bring you more testimony in the jealous husband murder trial for Bud Ackerman. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Ashley Wilcox.
And I'm Michael Ayala. We're both here today giving you your front row seat to justice, and we are in several courtrooms across the country this afternoon here on Court TV.
Here in South Carolina first, defendant William Bud Ackerman is accused of fatally striking Kenneth Davis McClendon with his car in the early morning hours of May 7th of 2023.
McClendon had recently begun dating Ackerman's soon-to-be ex-wife, and the two men had agreed to meet up and talk when McClendon was struck.
And in Florida, our newest live trial kicked off today with opening statements in the home renovation murder trial.
Corey Binderham is accused of killing his client after she threatened to sue him for not completing a bathroom project. We'll bring you updates from that trial throughout the day.
But for now, let's head back to South Carolina, where the state's final witness is testifying on direct examination. This is Captain Mike Murdoch, and he investigated this. He's been showing us video of the path of the truck that the defendant was in. Let's go back in.
There that may had advanced training and reconstruction or mapping, and I knew they had the ability to download what I call the black box. So that's why I called them in, because I knew if they were able to do the mapping, it would be able to provide you with a visual representation like I think you saw yesterday of the scene.
Of course, Doug, just a few more questions.
You're fine. You're fine.
Cat, will you come down here, please?
Sure. Oh, yeah. Yep, no problem.
Thank you, everybody's indulgence. Thank you. We're almost there.
Sure, no problem.
Captain.
Yes, sir.
Did y'all find Davis McClendon's wallet on him after he was killed?
No, sir.
What time's on the screen? 9:43:33?
Yes, sir.
You can have a seat back out. Now, Captain, you early on in our testimony, you said you talked to Mr. Cummings.
Yes, sir.
Was the crash depicted on Mr. Cummings' video?
Yes, sir. In the top right-hand corner, you can catch a glimpse of the crash.
And you said Mr. Mesita is this? You also got the video from the ring camera from Mr. Mesita, is that correct?
Yes, sir. It was during the investigation it was obtained.
You born and raised here?
Yes, sir.
And this states 58 you've told the ladies and gentlemen about. You traveled these roads a lot?
Not a lot, but I've been down some of them.
You've been on the road some, Captain?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Are some of these roads two-lane roads?
Yes, sir.
And at night, when you're driving and late at night, early morning hours, you got your headlights on?
Yes, sir.
And on these two-lane roads are mailboxes out in front of some of the houses?
Yes, sir.
Stop signs some at intersections?
Yes, sir.
Thank Carson Knowles.
Sure.
Hills?
Yes, sir.
You can sit back. I think I'm not.
Mr. Meredith, if you have some, a good bit more direct.
I think I can finish. Well,
I don't want to rush you. I'm just thinking maybe kind of stop right here, take a lunch break, and we can pick back up. And I don't want to rush you, nor do I want to rush Mr. Swirling.
Okay. Thank you, Judge.
Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a break.
All right, after that lunch break, the defense declined to cross-examine the witness. They had no questions, and then after that, the state rested its case. Now let's bring in criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor, still with us this hour, Marie Pereira. Marie, thank you for staying on with both of us. And that ring video, the part that I noted, you could hear that crash. You could hear that truck run in, and now we know it was a person that truck ran into. That's hard to listen to and not say, boy, he needs to be responsible for that.
It is very difficult. It's very strong demonstrative evidence. You can hear it. Like they said when they did the opening, you hear the bam. And I don't know, but I even heard like a voice, like a squealing. And it's really very impactful, and it helps prosecution in this case.
Yeah, I agree.
I can't tell you, though, I thought, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, thought I heard a tire screech.
Maybe that's what I thought was the...
I thought I heard a tire screech, and I know the screech you're talking about.
Yes.
To me, it sounded like a tire screech.
As if he was like, uh-oh, and slammed on his brakes.
And so that's my point, Marie. What do you make of that? Let's just assume that it was a tire screech. What is that telling us, right? His story is that he had to swerve to get out of the way, maybe even hit the brakes, although I believe the truck didn't register the brakes being hit. But at the end of the day, that screech suggests maybe there was some attempt to get out of the way. I don't know.
Hopefully for defense, they will interpret it as a tire screech and not the scream of somebody who was hit by a 7,000-pound vehicle. I think you're right, Michael. Maybe it is a tire screech. But then they had experts who came in to explain that there was no evidence that the car tried to brake or stop. That truck did not try to swerve. The tire marks didn't support someone trying to avoid another person.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough, because I know what the defense is going to do is bring in their own accident reconstructionist, which may have a different, obviously will have a different opinion, because I think you could try to swerve out of the way and not leave any tire marks or anything along that line. Although if that screech was tires, you would think the screech would leave some mark. I don't know.
It's kind of hard to know, but you're right. It is going to be the battle of the experts, because of course the defense is going to bring one in, and that's coming up next. We know coming up next, the defense does call their first witness. And Michael, you called it an accident reconstruction.